All right, let's go for it. So today we're going to look at diffraction. I used this as a vehicle to test Pulsar in a live performance. It's pseudo live. It was part of Channel Noise 21. Let's get started. I'll tell you about it as we go through it. Dr. Thompson was my advisor and mentor through my master's at Georgia Southern. Studied with Curtis Rhodes. Used to work at the National Science Foundation at the Allosphere. It's got a cool resume. This means a turn inwards. We called it a ballet for light. And because of that, I just felt compelled to use like French ballet terms. And I picked the ones that just seemed to suit the mood of it. But the title came after the thing was written. Played on a Moog Prodigy from the 70s. And I went and visited Moog in Asheville, and I applied to, and they didn't take me. So, what do you think of that? Okay, so here I kick in a sequencer with my Microbrute. This is not synchronized with Ableton. So I'm running an Ableton session for Pulsar. I'm playing it through that. Sometimes it's pre-recorded. Right here it is pre-recorded. With automation, a bunch of layers of it. As you can tell, it's kind of this rhythmic offset, little Steve Reich-esque. Reich-esque. And then, so this is common. I either play in the micro and then on the Moog. So Pulsar in this case is fixed. Remember, it's a quartet if it's ever fixed. And then the sequence is obviously recorded. I'd have to like change notes. And then the Moog is improvised, semi-improvised. I had like ideas, and then I'm gonna solo in this key with this kind of feel to it and stuff. Okay, so that's a walk inwards. I think I said a turn inwards before, a walk inwards. Yeah, and it was recorded live, so I cut off a little bit faster than I wanted to, but I wasn't gonna mess with it. One more thing, Al Lorenz did the videography for this, and I edited it, but she was switching them live, so when you see it go in between Dr. Thompson and I, that's her just queuing it up in the vibe. And there's a little secret Easter egg in this one. Okay. All right, next one up. So the second movement is the one that I was less confident in. I still think it's fine. It doesn't have the same emotional gravity to it. And I think that's why, if there's anything that maybe detracts from it a little bit, but still good. Although I've had people tell me it's their favorite. So this one does like a call and response between the two analog machines. And so I'll use this as a time to explain part of the conception of this, right? So diffraction comes from the wave-light-particle duality that occurs when you get to the, because I would say even particles of light, but really particles of anything. And in Microsound by Curtis Rhodes, he references the concept of phonons, which would be like an audio photon, right? A single unit of sound. But that is contradictory to what pitch is in general, and how we can analyze anything with Fourier transform. I gotta turn down my headphones a little bit. And so, diffraction here is exploring particles and continuous waveforms on multiple levels, right? Which also, the different time scales is super significant of pulsar synthesis in the first place. But one, the juxtaposition of the continuous waveform of the analog synthesizers set next to the ultimate discrete particle, which is pulsar synthesis, because not only is it discrete in the sense that it's digital, but it is even that's too continuous. We chop it up into little particles, little pulsarettes. And this goes hand in hand with the real issue I was having mentally at the time, with the concept of free will. Because you have intrusive thoughts, negative thoughts that you want to escape. And, you know, first you learn, oh, well, that's not logical. You need to categorize rational and irrational thoughts. But it's exhausting, and I don't want them in the first place. I don't want to want things that are harmful to me. I want to hear new music and not just listen to the same music over and over. I want to eat healthy food and live sober and make all the right decisions. I want to want that. How do I want that? That seems out of control, and if that's out of control, I have no control. So I was at a crisis of free will, because then it's like, oh, I have a bad habit. I can't even change it, because that bad habit is having uncontrollable thoughts. So how do you control your problem with being out of control? Doesn't make sense. So, and I kept coming up against this. And then I went to hypnotherapy for a while, and on top of regular therapy. And in one of the times when I was hypnotized, I just saw a sine wave so clear, and it was white on like a grayish dark backdrop. Probably something I've coded before, you know, but that stuck with me so profoundly. It is the wave, and I was trying to be the particle, or however you want to conceive it. It was like a calling to become part of the wave, to be a wave myself. So I wrote this right at that same time, and I don't know. I don't have a position on it, even still. Like, do we have free will? I've not made progress on that. I did say in another video that maybe we are closer to free will, pull up the next video here, as we approach the speed of light, which kind of makes sense to me in a weird way. This is my favorite one. It's the longest one too. Get out of here. So this is the one that I actually will improvise with Pulsar, cranking the clicks around and stuff. And because it has a long release and a long glide time, I can, the left hand, the Microbrute is, I just put a piece of tape on it to hold it down, hold down the note on. And so it's gonna repeat on this, and then I'll maybe mess with the effects in the envelope of it. With the Moog, I'm playing expressive controls and melodies and stuff, and then this is improvised as well. Again, I have a framework in my mind of like, oh, it's going to be this kind of gesture, but I'm really doing what feels right in the moment. So I know I'm going to bring in the flanger way later in the song or something, or I'm going to bring in the frequency delay. It's more effects and layering. I guess that's like a shoegaze thing, so it's probably pretty normal. But the thing I don't like about shoegaze is, what am I going to turn the knobs with my toes? That Moog looks so good. And then, wouldn't it be so nice if you could see Pulsar on the screen right now? I didn't even think of that. That would have been... You can see the Valhalla. So I'm using the M Audio, the Code 61 as a MIDI controller, obviously, but largely just for the slides. And then I'm triggering it, as I've shown before, with the sustain pedal in my foot. Got some pan effects going on there. I am using reflections as well, my personal delay reverb, so that's available. I love Dr. Thompson's visuals. He really killed it. And I think we both succeeded in having distinct movements, but a really cohesive work. This is my favorite thing I've ever made. It's my favorite collaboration I've done, at least just like in listening to it. The experience is great too. God, it looks so good. See if I can get this position a little better. There we go. like the Nez Perce, or like, I'm just thinking of Southwest Native American. We weren't trying to appropriate anything. I think neither of us were trying to go for that at all, really, but it kind of came out that way, and I really liked it. You can tell I like the song because it goes way longer. It just, like, let her rip. But so Dr. Thompson is improvising as well, and we, like I said, we would have a framework where the words we would always use as a parameter space, because how else can you really describe some of these things? And it's kind of hard, especially for him, because a lot of it's like looking at a feedback, like circular buffer of matrices that have come to pass of the video, right? So he's got a mesh at these points, generating a texture that's then being stored and delayed and played back in and added back together to the existing matrix in mesh. And so it's hard because you gotta like go into it. You gotta like fill it up with the right stuff to even get the thing that you wanted. So it's a lot of haptic feedback, they call it. You don't know what's gonna happen. Oh, and this is projected onto a wooden backdrop of a stage. We were gonna do the projector screen. You can kind of see the wood grains here. This is where he just rips it. And there is an all-visual version of this too. It's just rendering of it. So now, because I don't ever change that bass line, the chaconne, really, instead I'm applying new effects and I'm making it have that flutter. I'm doing this Pulsar shit live while playing the Moog too. It's not that difficult, but it's very clever about how I set it up, I think. So if I'm bragging about something, it's about the workflow, because just having the right envelopes, you can half-consciously control a lot of trajectories at once. But a lot of Pulsar synths and micro particle synthesizers kind of give you too much control to do something like this. You'd have to really siphon it down, which you could, and they didn't work in a DAW as easily, and working in a DAW made this very easy to do. So I routed everything through Ableton. The synthesizers are going into Ableton, and they get a little bit of reverb there as well. And then obviously Pulsar is in Ableton. Okay. Movement 4. Wow, it's already done. 4. See, I got 4 and 4B. Let's go to 4B. I think that's the one. So this is fixed media for Pulsar again. This is one of the harder ones for me to play. You know, this was the band I was in at the time. Someone had suggested Passion Fruit by Drake, and that inspired this chord progression, but I realized that later. I was like, damn it. I don't want to be a child lover boy. So I love that. This is more of a traditional setup, but like to have the envelope or the filter envelope of the Moog follow and be sidechained to the Arturia, so it brightens up as the bass comes in. I really appreciated collaborating with Dr. Thompson, and I mean, because he gave me a lot of composition lessons as well, and before that I'd been taking lessons from a former student of his too. You know, we just did on a lot of things were extremely similar, and then some were very different, which I guess could probably be said of any pairing of people in the master's program. That's what's fun about masters, is you really are see eye to eye with people in a way you never thought you could, but then you disagree so deeply also. But compositionally, I think we just clicked. I mean, and we worked on it separately, but we met once and then recorded this. And it was like in a hurry too. Do you notice this little leitmotif coming back? That's thanks to Dr. Harwood that I did this. But I think because we trusted each other and we're just able to let go of control and say yes and in like kind of an improv type sense, I said to him, well, it'll be a light ballet. And just that wording right there was like, what do you think that would be? And then he uses some points and shows this kind of thing. And I look at what he's working on after I showed him some rough sketches of it. And then I come back and kind of adapt to that. And so and then he adapts to what I did. And then we just kind of fell into place. I told him a little bit ahead of time the form of each song. So it's like, oh, there's going to be 4 sections where I do some improvisation and then come back. And then also the other thing is too, we were recording direct input, not like microphoned. So I would just like say to him like, oh, I'm going to finish in just a little bit here. Or I'm about halfway there. And plus we got a mask on. So it's even, you don't have anything. Can't even read our lips. So that was, it's like, oh yeah, I can do that. And so adding that in makes it really easy to improvise or like synchronize things improvised. That seems really hard, but if you're just talking while you're doing it, it's like, oh, yeah, I guess we could do that. Which is why having in-ears and like having a God mic for that band leader just to like say like, hey, someone's fucking up or whatever. It's always a good idea. But so anyways, Diffraction was it's a piece I'm really proud of. It's on my other channel, Ryan Devins and his music. I've moved away from that channel just because I wanted to isolate everything to Recluse-Audio. But it uses Pulsar. This is kind of what I conceived Pulsar for. I had been working on it pedagogically prior to this. And I was like, well, I got to actually put it to use. It won't be anything until I've used it, actually. I didn't really think of it as being about free will until that hypnotherapy session with the sine wave. And I took that to mean so much. I mean, I had some intense hypnotherapy sessions too. Let me tell you, I was, oh yeah, I won't even go into it, but, it got intense. And I started to realize like that has been the crux of, I guess I knew I had an issue with free will and my lack thereof for a long time, and how that made me feel like, well, I can't even fix myself because I don't have the choice. There is no choice. Started with that. But then to make the connection between the wave-particle duality, because I think particle is total free will and wave is total causality. Because if you're in a wave, you're being moved by it. It moves through you. Whereas a particle, you're like moving around. That's why I think the best way to think of life is as a surfer. And I don't surf, so that's why I got to learn. But because you don't really make waves, but you can choose how you ride them. And in a way, you become part of the wave. You are the wave, you know. So is the kelp and the garbage and the water that's being pushed through it. The wave is the energy. It's just being transferred through a medium. Same with sound. And we notice those changes in energy. It's not that we're getting air pumped into our ears when we hear sound. We're getting physical energy, kinetic energy pumped into our ears. And I don't know, I think diffraction was a good exploration of that spectrum. That same spectrum that is pitch to rhythm is causality to free will.